Tonight, a story about one of the most famous buildings in the Twin Cities and the architect who designed it.
You may not have heard the name Philip Johnson, but chances are you know his work. But a dark period in his past is now under a microscope. It's a history lesson that may be as timely and relevant as ever. Here's Fox 9 investigator Tom Lydon.
If form follows function, the IDS Center is a reflection of a city wanting to play in the big leagues. Geographically, psychologically, it sits at the epicenter of Minneapolis. Its grand crystal court, a backdrop for Mary Richards. But the full backstory of this glass icon and the architect who envisioned it is still waiting to be told.
Although some architects bridle at being called prostitutes, I don't see why. It's a very old profession and used to be a very noble one where you do your best.
Completed in 1972, the IDS building looked like a monolith sprouting from the prairie, surpassing the Fauché Tower to become the undisputed star of the Minneapolis skyline. At 57 stories, it remains Minnesota's tallest building. It was designed by the world-renowned architect Philip Johnson, who was himself a piece of work.
We're just as small, just as self-centered, just as egotistical, just as mean as any soprano you've ever known.
Johnson died in 2005 at 98, mortality finding him in his most famous creation, his glass house in Connecticut. And yet, even his obituary in the New York Times ignored Philip Johnson's most indelible sin. Until now, few have been willing to throw stones.
We can't sugarcoat it. I think he was quite simply a devoted fascist for 8 years.
Historian Mark Wortman says Johnson was a player in the shadow war leading up to America's entry into World War II. With Johnson attending Hitler youth rallies in Germany in 1936 and covering the Nazi invasion of Poland in 1939 as a so-called journalist. In dispatches he wrote, "We saw Warsaw burn. It was a stirring spectacle." As he blamed the invasion on the one group, he wrote, who always gained power in a nation's time of weakness, the Jews.
And he appreciated that Hitler was reshaping the world and would need architects to help design it. And he thought that there was a grandiose aesthetic there that spoke to him as he was creating something that came to be called the international style.
In the 1930s, Johnson tried to import fascism to America, attempting to start a nationalist party, hooking up with such ignoble anti-Semitic figures as Huey Long and Father Coughlin.
The problem with Johnson is he always liked to play both sides of every fence.
Architectural critic Mark Lamster lays out those contradictions in The Man in the Glass House. At once charismatic and chameleon-like, Johnson lived off of a trust fund, but railed against capitalism. He was homosexual, yet proselytized eugenics.
He basically quit his job and devoted himself full-time to promoting fascism in the United States. He founded a political party. He envisioned himself as an American Führer. He traveled extensively in Germany, and he was essentially an agent of the Nazi state operating in the United States.
J. Edgar Hoover's FBI had Johnson under near constant surveillance, believing he was a Nazi spy. FBI reports from the time suggest Johnson renounced his beliefs after Pearl Harbor. There's even discussion of turning Johnson into a confidential informant. But he was never indicted, or for that matter, publicly shamed.
He was able to live down his connections to Nazism and fascism in a way that very few other Americans ever could.
He had second acts, third acts, fourth acts, and his wealth and position definitely inoculated him and helped him. His powerful friends and position and status helped him move past the stain on his life.
A longtime curator at New York's Museum of Modern Art, in the 50s and 60s, Johnson became a designer of modernist residential homes, like the home in Wayzata that caught the eye of department store heir Kenneth Dayton, who convinced Johnson and his partner to design what would become the new headquarters for Dayton Hudson, now Target, and Investors Diversified Services, now Ameriprise. Johnson's masterstroke for the tower, those vertical indentations, he called them zogs, which gave each floor 32 corner offices instead of the usual 4.
IDS was sort of Philip Johnson's breakthrough, which I did not know.
Yeah, that's an important project for him and for us.
The IDS project led to other commissions, placing Philip Johnson in the stratosphere of so-called starchitects, building signature skyscrapers around the world. St. Thomas professor Victoria Young is president of the Society of Architectural Historians.
And he realizes, the Nazism, the fascism isn't going to work anymore in a post-World War II America. So what's the future? And I think, that break it seems to me to be pretty hard and fast.
Over the years, Johnson tried to make amends. In the 50s, he designed a synagogue in New York for free, a nuclear research facility in Israel, where he became friends with Prime Minister Shimon Peres. He promoted Jewish architects like Frank Gehry, and for the IDS Center, worked closely with Minneapolis architect Ed Baker, who was Jewish.
He did definitely admit to it, apologize. He often said it was the sorriest episodes of his life.
And yet, such was Johnson's influence that few ever even whispered of his Nazi-loving past until a few months ago, when 30 prominent architects, artists, and academics wrote an open letter calling out Johnson for his widely documented white supremacist views and activities. The group demanding Harvard and the Museum of Modern Art strip Johnson's name off various projects. It echoes the debate over Confederate monuments and the renaming of Lake Calhoun, or Charles Lindbergh's name quietly removed from Terminal 1 at the airport.
Should his past matter? Yes, because people need to know it's part of our landscape, literally, part of the Twin Cities landscape with the connection to the IDS.
Steve Hunnigs of the Jewish Community Relations Council says while Johnson's name isn't on the IDS, the controversy is still deeply personal for those who live with the scars of the Holocaust and World War II.
That there needs to be some discussion, some explanation of who he was. I mean, it's part of the education of people, so that they have an understanding not only of who he was, but maybe about the complexity of life.
It was Johnson himself who once said, "You cannot not know history," words that now haunt his legacy.
We have never been immune to right-wing extremists and those who don't believe in democracy and who would like to tear down our government and remake society into a new order. These are humans, and humans have pasts, and often those pasts are murky, and sometimes they can include aspects that are out and out evil.
Instead of canceling Philip Johnson, there is an opportunity for the owners of the IDS Center and the rest of us to acknowledge his disgraceful history even as we celebrate his creation. In fact, it just may be a history lesson as timely as ever. For the Fox 9 investigators, I'm Tom Lydon.
Fox 9 reached out to the commercial real estate firm that owns the IDS Center, Acesso. In a statement, they said, "We have been deeply troubled to learn about Philip Johnson's past as it has come to light. This is not what our organization or this property stands for. We condemn anti-Semitism and discrimination in all its forms. The IDS Center is a place of inclusion, respect, and collaboration, and we will continue to foster the dynamic interactions that make this the central gathering place of Minneapolis."